Hi, my name is Andrew Esparza, and my presentation is going to be on the use and benefits of psychedelic drugs. And alright, so the first slide, tripping. Have you ever wondered what it's like to try acid or shrooms? Yes, I know it's basically like crack. I could understand why someone would think that it's a very you know, looked down upon drug. It's way different than weed, in my opinion, and I can see how the stigma around it is formed. The problem is that it's all the negative stigma around it, and the idea of trying such a drug makes you seem like you're a hardcore drug addict or a drug abuser or hippie, when in most cases the user is just doing it for the mind changing experience. It's best to look at it like a psychological experience rather than just getting high. It makes you appreciate it more. Alright, and so the history of psychedelics. They were first introduced in 1938 by a chemist named Albert Hofmann, who was trying to make stimulants but accidentally made LSD instead. His studies led him to use it for psychotherapeutic use, and soon after, some pharmaceutical companies started sending it to universities and places across the world, to clinics across the world. And as a result, decades of research started, which led to new understandings of the brain's neurochemistry and how these drugs could be used to help mental illness. Though it was made illegal within 10 years of its creation, um, though it was made illegal within 10 years of its creation, psychedelics just recently made a very big comeback, just within like 2016, I believe. Um, for instance, religious organizations are just recently having their use of psychedelics validated in the court of law, which is pretty big because it's like a following that's led through the knowledge of psychedelics, which is very different. And next, according to Dr. James Fadiman, author of Psychedelic Explorer Guide, engineers in Silicon Valley are substituting Adderall for microdoses of LSD at work, and what you get is the best part of Adderall. Quote, what you get is the best part of Adderall with none of the side effects. You function better physically and mentally, said Fadiman. Most importantly, the FDA and the DEA are approving psychedelic studies for the first time in decades, and enabling researchers to examine the efficiency of psychedelics in treating mental illnesses such as anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Health benefits. Alright, so psychedelic drugs have had many recreational uses throughout the years and spread into various sectors of the world since the 40s. And with its increasing research, modern doctors and psychologists are rediscovering what natives have known for almost thousands of years, is that psychedelics have incredible healing capabilities when used with the proper intentions. And according to Professor David Presti from UC Berkeley, one of the best psychedelic work is reducing one of the best ways psychedelics work is by reducing our psychological defenses. They allow a person to become aware of an uncomfortable feeling or thought, so they can come to the surface and be therapeutically processed. Psychedelics allow you to experience life at its peak. It's an extraordinary state that transcends the normal egoic function of the mind and instead gives the experience of egoless and oneness and interconnection to the individual, which is a very wonderful experience. I think everyone should try. And these rare moments are the very thing that heals the core person, which has long-lasting beneficial effects throughout the psyche. And as you can see, this is pretty much how you can best describe it. It pretty much just shifts everything in your brain, functions. It pretty much changes everything around, and just gathers it all together. Okay, and I guess you could see, I guess why people would think this is just an excuse to excuse the use of such hardcore drugs. Um, However, there's a lot of research behind it. In fact, in the United Kingdom, researchers in the United Kingdom have used fMRI to map brain activity of 19 patients with resistant major depression who were given psilocybin. The results shed light on how this compound changes human brain function. The day before and the day after the treatment, the researchers used fMRI to look at the blood flow and brain functional activity of each patient. And the findings were compared with the patient's depressive symptoms, and the results actually showed that the psilocybin produced rapid and sustained antidepressant effects within each of them. And after one day of treatment, the group's mean depression score was half of what it was the day before, and within 5 weeks, just one of the patients didn't show decreased depressive symptoms, which is actually really impressive. And this is how, scan. This is kind of how it, like, showing the brain function through brain flow, and that kind of like lets them know how your brain's working. Alright, so now the different types. The most common types of psychedelics are lysergic acid dithylamide, which is LSD. It's a man-made chemical made from ergot, a fungus that grows on certain grains. It's probably the most powerful hallucinogen available, producing hallucinations, changes in the way reality is perceived, and altered moods. Psilocybin, which is the natural substance and found in hallucinogenic mushrooms that contains powerful hallucinogens. That contains psilocybin and psilocin. In large enough doses, psilocybin can produce effects very similar to LSD. Shrooms, as they're often called, can be used in either fresh or dried. They're normally eaten mixed with food, or they're mixed with a drink or a tea. And then lastly, DMT, can't pronounce that, also known as Dimitri, is a natural chemical found in some Amazonian plant species, but it can be chemically synthesized, and it comes into a white crystal powder that's vaporized and smoked. So, and it's not really yet clear how hallucinogens work. However, according to the National Center of Biotechnology Information, hallucinogens are thought to affect the neural circuits of the brain involving serotonin, and these drugs cause their effects by disrupting the actions of the brain's glutamate system. So it kind of just like messes with the whole brain system and changes the way you think. Have a good trip. A Netflix documentary, which actually inspired me to make this presentation, goes into detail on how these drugs make you feel, and how they alter your sense of reality for the better. This hour-long special features an abundance of well-known actors and celebrities, and that share their positive experience and recommendations for the use of such drugs. People like Anthony Bourdain shared his experience with LSD and was quoted saying, "It enabled me early on to imagine another point of view, another perspective. I think it made me a better person, both creatively and in every other way. I would rather have been a person who's had that in their past rather than someone who's missed it." In addition, David Cross in that same documentary said the planet would be a better planet if everybody took acid once. So it's an experience of a lifetime. It is completely up to you whether you want to try psychedelics. It's a mind-altering experience that only you should decide whether you want to partake in. It's understandable why one may be scared to take certain drugs, but taken with proper measures and effects, the effects are life-changing. So Albert Hoffman took small doses of LSD almost every single day of his life for the last 20 years of his life, and lived all the way up to 102 years old. So that's pretty crazy. The fact that these hallucinogens have had many positive health benefits, I believe everyone should try them at least once, just to have had that just to have had that positive health benefit. Just so everyone has had that experience, and that experience that life has to offer, and I feel like we should all indulge in it. And you only have one life, so why not explore it? So, not to mention it is becoming increasingly accepted and regulated around the world. In fact, just recently, Denver was the first city to decriminalize mushrooms containing the psychedelic psilocybin, and I'm glad such drugs are becoming less stigmatized and widely accepted, as they will only prove to improve society through their positive benefits. So yeah, that's why I think you should try psychedelics.